A hearty welcome to all of you. I'm indeed grateful that we could all respond immediately to my request to focus on a topic that is gaining so much traction and that's also inviting a lot of interest. And I give you a small backdrop of why we have been doing this. As Meenakshi said, we come on the field in 1968 since our 54th year. It's a small, specialized publication not reaching very large numbers, but in a state which has been known and famous for its film leaders and also its social consciousness and all. We came along with the DMK moralists in 1968 and the evolutionists in parallel, all the social changes we have indeed. We thought there is enough need for us to focus on development issues, on economic issues. And we have been trying to do this both through my journal and also by organizing such seminars, public lectures, and interaction sessions. I'm happy that all the participants today have been very kind in associating with us. Mantek himself, along with Aishud Judge Alwalia, had graced our meetings a few occasions in the past. For 40 years, Sheshai has been so sustained to us in terms of conducting this. A few years ago, when we organized a seminar on special economic zones, Vinayak very readily deputed his next in line to participate in this a day-long seminar in which about 20 policymakers participated. What is the scope for special economic zones? And Christian has been a family friend for years, and I draw a lot of inspiration visiting and disturbing him at his secretariat office oftentimes and getting updated on the various fiscal and monetary issues. A hearty welcome to each one of you. I had the privilege of looking at economic issues for 50 long years from the ringside seat. This has given me an opportunity to look at the changes in the various spheres, and infrastructure has been one of the fascinating areas which interests me a lot. In the 50s and 60s, the time when I was evolving in the early 60s, when I came on the field, infrastructure expenditure was largely made by multilateral and bilateral lending. A lot of help came from support from many countries abroad. I had the opportunity to interact with several of these at World Bank, IMF, KfW, ADB, as also with ECB, European Central Bank. And apart from interacting with policymakers like Manse for close to 40 years in Delhi and other areas. So what impressed me at that point of time was the ability, especially with brilliant IAS officers like Christian, to source monies for investments from across the globe on extremely favorable terms. In the 60s, I was closely following the public sector, the ascent of the public sector, the commanding heights it was trying to reach, covered dozens of projects of BHEL, trade, naval aviation corporation, the coal, ONGC, and all those projects. One thing impressed me was the ability of the administration to source funding from institutions spread across the globe. I tried the instance of the first and the difficult parts of such sourcing. I was looking at how Naval Electric Corporation was funded. And you remember, Tamil Nadu lacked many natural resources. A major resource for the state has been lignite. And they had the foresight, some brilliant leaders had the foresight to dig deep, more than 100 feet, remove the overburden, and produce lignite in large quantities to produce power. In fact, at Neyveli, but for Neyveli, the northern parts and the central parts of the city of Hunter got so much of electricity for the development of agriculture and other areas. An interesting aspect here that struck me was the course of the funding for this. Initially, the German KfW loaned 100 million Deutsche Mark and with very easy terms, 10-year moratorium, 40-year repayment, and three-fourths of 1% interest. You couldn't ask for more. The interesting part was this was used for producing power essentially. And we started at a time when the Daishin mark was 1 rupee 30 paise. That means the 1 million Daishin mark was equal to 1300 million rupees or 130 crore. We were very prompt in making repayments after the 10-year moratorium ended in 70. We have been regular in this. By early 1990s, we had already repaid half the loan. That is 500 million Dashi mark had been repaid. But the balance 500 million mark, in terms of rupees, was a humongous amount because the Dashi mark has strengthened from 1 rupee 30 paise to close to 25 rupees. That means after repaying half the loan, the money due in terms of rupees built into something like 12,500 million rupees or 1,250 crore or nearly 10 times the original loan we took in terms of rupees. So I was wondering the problem of taking loans for activities that are not generating foreign exchange, for say water development projects or sewage development projects and things like that. So this was worrying me in terms of somebody looking at it. He thought the huge loans we are taking in terms of dollar, in terms of pound sterling, in terms of yen, they all been bloating in terms of inability to control our exchange value. You fast forward, come to the 90s, we had the experiment of L&T, it was pioneered by Ramakrishna of L&T Faith. He constructed a road connection between Palghat and Coimbatore bypass. And there was the beginning of the concept of using a road infrastructure on long-term plan to repay it, to recover the cost in terms of tolls and build the infrastructure in quick time. This gained traction in quick time, and then the Vajpayee we had the Golden Quadrilateral project that saw a spectacular transformation of the road system in the last 20 years. Is it sustainable? Luckily for us, in the 2004 to 2012, the economy grew rapidly, and we could take up more projects on the government sector too. But by and large, the BOT concept gained traction in terms of airports and things like that. We were thinking in terms of such a concept of involving private sector to do this. But today we have reached a stage where governments are in serious problems of raising resources. Krishnan is anyway going to talk about this later. So we had the problem of both center and the state struggling to raise resources exclusively for large projects. In that context, I felt this concept of monetization of public assets can assume importance. The point that is often posed by the parties in opposition related to the selling of the family's miller, but if carefully captured, this can be a game changer in terms of expediting construction. People like Vinayak, they are going to talk about the huge need for infrastructure spending. We talk in terms of hundreds of billions of dollars of money needed for this. One method of doing this, we ran a questionnaire on this a couple of months back. Mansik and another expert on this from Tamil Nadu cadre YS, MS Srinivasan, responded to this. And luckily, both of them welcomed this, but they have the caveats. And what are the things to be done to make sure that this works? This is safeguarding the public interest and all. My discussions with Shesh also geared onto this. We got special inputs on this. Then I thought why we should not get a public focus on this, as Mansik suggested in his response to our questionnaire. An experiment of 5 projects or so can be taken for public discussion. The nuances can be finalized, and then we can launch on this. So I thought this subject, with the participation experts like you, can throw a lot of light on the modalities that need to be done and also on the best manner of getting the best benefits out of the entire scheme. I thought your expert views will be of value to it. We will consolidate and present it in our issue and take it to the policymakers so that we could do this. I hand this back to Meenakshi to continue. I once again extend a very hearty welcome to each one of you and look forward to a treat from each one of you. Thank you very much.